a study came out that showed you could take gut microbes found in the feces of young mice, you could put them in older mice, and it would reverse age-related decline in those older mice. History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Have you ever thought that as you age, have you ever thought of doing kind of edgy or experimental medical treatment to lose a few years or to maintain your health? I don't know if we're there yet, age-wise.
You mean like implants? Like body, like hardcore body modification? Like tattoo my eyeballs black?
Oh,
No.
maybe if that had health benefits. I'm thinking stuff like
health benefits. No. Just exclusively kinky stuff for me. No, I would. I think I know what you're angling at, though, buddy. You're talking about a certain type of transplant, huh?
Well, yeah. My segue was going to be the idea that we talked earlier. I'm still baffled by this, about plasma transfusions, giving the blood of the young to the older, well-to-do, with the idea that it does have medical benefits. But yes, our first story is about something slightly different. It is about a transplant. That's correct. It is about a poop transplant. That's right. We thought we'd open with some good news, kind of gross news, but good news.
But before we dig, I don't know why. That's not necessarily inherently a gross pun, digging. But my mind just goes places. What is there between an infusion, a transfusion, or a transplant? I mean, poop is obviously, let's call it, if we were talking in the parlance of like video games, poop is a consumable. Well, it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of the opposite of a consumable. But like blood, you have blood in your body. You can remove it, it's sort of liquidy. It's in a state that would, be able to be injected or infused, Is poop kind of like that? Like, why do they call it a transplant when they don't call plasma a transplant or blood a transplant? They call those infusions or transfusions.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's a good question. So an infusion is a different thing being put into something. A transfusion is the same substance from an outside source. So that's why you get a blood transfusion. It's still like typo negative or something, which is not a bad band. And then a transplant is, a transfusion is given intravascularly, right? Through your blood system. But a transplant is, you're opened up and it's put inside you. So it is an interesting question. For this story, I was excited to find some actual science behind something I talked about in previous. I was either an actual episode or it was a strange news segment with the idea that you can take your gut biome, you can take someone else's gut biome or a sample thereof, you can put it into another person's body and it can have health benefits. I think we first remember this with a story out of Japan, I believe it was, right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm sorry not to dwell too much, and then I'll certainly allow you to move on. But like, your body makes new poop, right? I could get a liver transplanted. I only have one liver. My body's not going to make another one. I'm getting someone else's liver in place of my liver. But I mean, a poop transplant is, it's just temporary, right? Like, how does it like live there within you forever if poop is constantly circulating in and out of your system?
Yeah. The fancy name is a fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT. And this works because, actually, if you're human, a lot of your solid waste is bacteria, is like dead bacteria. What happens with the transplant is that they're moving not just straight up poop, but they're moving gut microbes that live in your body or live in someone else's body to the other person. And those gut microbes have a real and profound, still not fully understood effect on the human body. You could almost say that your body, again, if you're human, is a conspiracy of very, very small things. You actually have many more bacterial cells in what you call your body than you do human cells, because human cells are much larger. Please, for a trippy look at this, check out my earlier brain stuff video on how farts work. Sorry, it's weird. But the gut microbes also responsible for a lot of the gas that humans expel at a rate of 17 to 23 times a day, every 24 hours. This research has been a while in coming. I want to check out Biospace. Brandon May did a great write-up of this. Back in August of 2021, a study came out that showed you could take gut microbes found in the feces of young mice, you could put them in older mice, and it would reverse age-related decline in those older mice. Kind of stuff that you wouldn't expect. Like you would maybe say, okay, what if they had some mouse version of inflammatory bowel disease or inflammatory bowel stuff, IBS? Well, sure, that could change. But what was startling is that the older mice started to exhibit changes in their brains. Like they started thinking better. Their hippocampus began to resemble the hippocampus of a young mouse, physically and chemically. That's important because the hippocampus plays a big role in memory and learning. They saw the older mice start to solve mazes much faster, and they were able to remember the mazes better. This didn't happen in the old mice that weren't, running off young poop. And it seems that this confirms earlier studies, including stuff about diabetes.
So it's pointing to a deficiency in the gut biome of the recipient that is inherent to age, or is it something that just some people experience in the same way some people might have cognitive decline over time?
Yeah, it's fascinating because that's what I mean with not yet fully understood. We know that there are some clear effects. We know that your gut biome, think of it as an ecosystem all its own, the same way that there are biomes in the natural world. Your gut inside of you right now, there's this whole circle of life thing going on every time you eat a quesadilla or whatever your favorite thing is. And when they looked at this, what they found was diet can affect these things, the state of maybe the water you ingest or environmental factors, but age must play a role. And we know this not just because of that 2021 study, but a new study that came out in Science News from the University of East Anglia, Fecal Transplants Reverse Halls of Aging. This is from May of this year. This is even more interesting because they did a reverse experiment. They did the kind of thing you probably can't legally do with humans at this point. They took microbes from older mice and put them in younger mice, and they saw that this started inflaming the brains of the younger mice, and it appeared to deplete a key protein required for good vision. So gut microbes maybe play a role in regulating age-related decline, not just in the body, but in the mind, which leads me to ask, us, like Noel, Doc, fellow conspiracy realist, at what price would you extend your quality of life? Would you take a poop transplant? In a few years, it'll probably be possible. Would you take a poop transplant if it meant that you would be a little sharper in your later years? You would have better memory, might have better vision. I mean, what would you, it seems like kind of a no-brainer. I just wouldn't want to meet the donor.